The S&B cold air that we have here today would be an awesome choice for all 09 to 13 V8 Silverado owners who are looking for one of the highest rated intakes available on the site at a very affordable price point. Now the S&B will feature that durable ABS plastic build throughout, reusable oiled filter here, sealed enclosure, and will not require the use of any custom or can tuning. Now, big features with the S&B do include the rotomolded plastic intake tube, along with your corresponding sealed air box, all topped off with the plexiglass window. Now, that sealed enclosure is going to be the preferred design when looking to isolate that oiled filter from hot engine bay air, which can otherwise hurt your performance. Now, this particular kit does also feature S&B's signature oiled filter, which will flow a little bit better compared to a dry filter while needing only minor maintenance every 100,000 miles or so before good cleaning and re-oiling is recommended. Also like to point out, guys, that this is backed by S&B's signature million-mile warranty, just in case you're running any issues there. Now, if you prefer not to mess with any oiling for whatever reason, you don't want to do that kind of maintenance, that's fine. S&B does also offer a dry kit instead. Basically the same exact system that you see here, but with a dry filter in place of the oil. Now, ultimately, all the components from S&B should lead to a little bit more power, a little bit more throttle response on your V8 powered Silverado, again, without needing any additional custom or can tuning. Now, construction is going to be that heat-resistant plastic I did mention earlier, guys. I'm a big fan of using that in intake systems, as the plastic will be less susceptible to heat soak compared to a metal tube or metal heat shield. Now, the air box, again, is also molded plastic, and again, we talked about that included see-through window or plexiglass here. It does have the S&B etching in place, and that's there as a nice little styling attribute, but also, more importantly, to help keep an eye on that filter cleanliness or condition over the years. Finally, guys, S&B does include all of your hardware and accessories and everything needed for a relatively easy install. Now, price point for the S&B is going to hover around that mid to high $300 mark, which I would say is kind of middle of the pack in regards to other intakes on the site for this particular generation Silverado. Now, you can certainly go with a more budget-friendly option from Rough Country or Spectre, while other options such as the K&N, for instance, will certainly round out the higher end of the spectrum. And again, options like the S&B are kind of land right somewhere there in the middle. But now let's shift our focus over to the installation here, guys. Site's gonna correctly call this a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about an hour or so to complete from start to finish. But now let's head out to the shop for our detailed walkthrough and quick tool breakdown.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, 14mm wrench, Phillips head screwdriver, an extension, T15 Torx wrench, in 8 and 10mm sockets. What's up, guys? Today we're installing an intake on our Silverado. First, we're gonna watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory intake. Now, this video was shot on a 5.3 liter. However, the same uninstall procedure is gonna apply to all of the V8s in this year range. So we'll watch that, and then I'll meet you right back here for the install.
All right, first thing we're gonna do is disconnect our MAP sensor. You have to press down on this little gray locking tab. As you press down on it, just gently pull, set the sensor connection aside. Once you've done that, you need to grab your 8mm socket and loosen up this first band clamp securing the air box to our intake tube. Once you've loosened up that clamp, your primary coolant line over here might be connected to this little tab on the intake tube. It's just a little plastic fitting. You just have to grab something like a trim tool or a small pry tool and just kind of pry that out of there. All right, next we're going to disconnect our crankcase and ventilation hose, and it's connected to this little resonator box here. This is also just held in with a kind of rubber grommet and a plastic ring. So just gently pull on it in order to release it. Okay, we're almost ready to remove our intake system. All we need to do now is disconnect this clamp, securing our intake tube to our throttle body with the same 8mm socket. Once you've sufficiently loosened up that clamp, you can see it's kind of wiggling around here. You want to go ahead and grab a hold of the intake tube. I like to grab on this little piece here behind this little resonator as well as right here. Just gently pull back all the way. There's also going to be a plastic grommet on top of this resonator here. There's a little fitting on top of the engine there, on top of the intake manifold. You just also have to make sure you pull that up and out as well when you pull the intake system off. Once you've done that, you want to pull the intake tube away from the air box with that first clamp that we've loosened up and pull the intake tube and resonator assembly out as one piece. All right, now all we need to do is remove our factory air box. It's pushed into the inside of the fender here, but there's not actually any hardware holding it in place. There's also a mounting tray directly underneath the air box with some grommets, kind of keeping this thing situated. All I need to do is kind of gently pull up and out. You can see ours is extremely loose because we do so many intakes. But just apply gentle pressure in order to unseat those fittings on the bottom and remove the intake box as one piece.
So now we're going to start off by assembling our air box. We've got a few seals that we're going to need to press into place. We've got the circular one that's going to go for our air intake on this side. We've got this one over here. And then at the bottom, we've got this optional plug that you can put in, or you can leave it out if you want a little bit more airflow. We're going to put this one in for demonstration purposes. It's going to go from the inside down. So now I'm going to start off on the bottom one, angling our air box down. And we'll rotate it around. Now this one has a groove in here that's just going to press onto this lip. So just line it up and press it on. And then this next one has a groove. It's going to have to slide over this hole. So we'll get the one side inside. Just work it around. Next, we can get our intake box into place, but before we do that, we're gonna have to remove these 4 10mm bolts that hold the factory tray for our air box into place. So grab a 10mm socket and pop these out. So now we can get our new air intake box into place. Now it's a little bit of a tight squeeze, so you're gonna have to kind of shift your coolant reservoir to the side, manipulate your lines to slide it in there. The circle hole is gonna go towards the engine. And then get it lined up with your bolt holes from the tray that you just removed, and we have some new bolts that are gonna go in its place. Next, we can take those 10mm bolts with flat washers that are included in our kit. Now it's a little hard to get a camera angle of all of these bolt holes inside this box, but you have 4 holes. They're lined up perfectly with the U-clips. So just get into position and thread those bolts in. And then grab your 10mm socket to tighten these down. Now next, you can grab your stock air box so that we can remove our MAF sensor and transfer that over to our intake tube. Take a T15 Torx wrench and remove the 2 Torx bolts holding this on and pop your MAF sensor out. And then be careful with this because it is pretty easy to damage. So now we can install that onto our intake pipe. So what we're going to do is take this piece that's going to go down against our intake tube with this gasket in between it. So drop that on and line it up. Get your MAF sensor. Press that down into place. And then we have Phillips head screws that are going to be replacing those Torx bolts. And then do the same on the other side before you tighten that down. Now, if your Silverado has a MAP sensor, the MAP, that's gonna go in this hole here. There's a dot here in the middle. You're gonna take a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill that hole out. And then we have the same gasket, plate, and the sensor will go in through the top. Same style as we did for our MAP sensor. We don't have that on our Silverado, so I'm gonna skip this step so we can move on to our PCV line fitting. So we're gonna thread that into this hole here. And then take a 14mm wrench to tighten that up. This is a plastic fitting, so don't over tighten it because you can crack it. Next, we can come to our PCV line and follow it back to where it connects to the valve cover here. Now there is a locking tab on there. You're gonna have to pull down and push over to release the clip and pull this off. Now it's very hard to see on camera, so I'll give you a closer look once I get this out. So I'm just gonna kind of turn this around to get access to that and pop it off. Now all I did here was come to this little tab and push down and over on it just like that. And what that does is it opens up the clip inside here so that you can slide it off. So now we can grab our new PCV line included in the kit and slide our clamp on top of that. And then we'll slide this onto the fitting on our valve cover. Slide this clamp back into place. And then take an 8mm socket and tighten down that clamp. Next, we can grab our filter and drop that into our intake box. And then we'll grab our intake tube and grab our coupler. Now we have a smaller and a bigger clamp. The bigger clamp's gonna go over the bigger side of the coupler and then slide over the intake tube. And then the smaller side is gonna go towards the throttle body. Once you have those in place, you can just go underneath of this coolant reservoir hose, press this into your intake box. Now you're gonna wanna get your filter lined up and slid onto it as you're sliding that in. And then you can come back and it will line up to your throttle body. Press that on. So now we're gonna get everything buttoned up on our intake tube and then we'll worry about our air box. So we're gonna start off with our 2 clamps on the throttle body coupler. So you're gonna wanna give this a good shove, make sure it's fully seated on there. And then you can take your 8mm socket and tighten down these 2 clamps. And as you're tightening it, just make sure that it's seated properly all the way around before you fully tighten it down. And then do the same thing for this one. This one was a little bit out of position. And then we can take the second clamp for our PCV hose, slide that over, and then slide our PCV hose onto the fitting. And then you can tighten this one down. Again, this is a plastic fitting, so don't over tighten it because you can snap it right off. And then lastly, we'll grab that connector for our mass airflow sensor. Plug that in, and then we have this white locking tab that will press down to lock that into place. So now you can get your filter all the way snugged up and then tighten down your clamp. Now inside the air box, I like to put my clamp down to the side so that it's hidden. So I'll get that tucked out of the way and then take an 8mm socket, snug it up. And just give it a nice tug, make sure it's not going anywhere. And then we can work on our cover here. So what I'm gonna do is get this cover installed into the seal first. This little cutout on the corner is gonna line up with this tab on the seal. And then just work your way around, one corner at a time. Get that slid over. And then we've just got this little groove that's gonna clamp around the air box. So just one at a time. Get that into place. Now lastly, we can reinstall our engine cover. This This back corner is gonna hook into the 2 hooks all the way in the back there. And then we have these 2 grommets that are gonna go on top of these 2 posts. Just get slid back in there and on those 2 hooks. And then lay it down onto your grommets and give it a push. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the SMB cold air intake with oiled cleanable cotton filter for your 2009 to 13 V8 Silverado 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.